Hello, sorry if you can hear the mowing that's happening in my next door neighbor. I can't ask them to stop because that would be rude. But today we're going to talk about The Dark Forest, which is the sequel to The Three-Body Problem. I just finished this and it's really hard to talk about spoiler free, so I need to talk about it spoiler filled. There are a few things that I want to talk about. I'm not going to cover everything that this book does because my goodness is it dense. There's so much going on in this book, but I will talk about the things that stood out to me the most. So like I said in the spoiler-free video I did on Thursday in the vlog as well as on Friday in the wrap-up on my other channel, this asked the question, after the events of book one, after the Trisolarans find out where we are and they're on their way, they're coming, how does humanity respond? Or more specifically, how would humanity respond if they're faced with an enemy that is stronger than them, more powerful than them, and smarter than them, and more than they'll ever hope to be? Someone who in every way poses a greater threat than we could ever imagine. But it also discusses the Fermi paradox, human nature, and many, many other things, which we'll get to some of. But the answer that this book poses of how humanity might respond is this concept of the wall facers, which is such a cool idea of how to handle this one specific issue that they have, or rather benefit that they have. So the Trisolarans are unable to understand the human psyche. They don't understand how what you think and what you say could be different, because the Trisolarans are a very transparent civilization. What they think and what they say, what their motives are, this is all on the surface. But humans have this ability and in fact inclination of hiding deeper motives and keeping things very much buried within ourselves. And this very thing could be our detriment, or in this case could be our one hope of survival. So these wall facers are introduced, which is people from different places in the world who are given the task of coming up with an idea, coming up with a method. These are highly qualified people coming up with a method to be able to combat the Trisolarans by the time they get here. And they didn't choose this fate. The fate was chosen for them because they're deemed the most likely to help us. But they must not tell anyone. They have to keep it in their mind and not reveal their plan at all, because humanity's ability to keep secrets are their only defense against this impending doom. Reason being because the Trisolarans have sent Sophons, which are super smart machines which are able to monitor humans, read all digital and written communications, and report back to the Trisolarans. So they're spying on us. So our only defense is to keep it all in your head. Don't talk, because anything you say, anything you write will be observed. But then on top of that, we also have this group, the Earth Trisolaran organization, who want to welcome the Trisolarans. They've accepted their fate and they want them to come. And they're headed up by Ye Wenjie, who sent out the signal in the first place. And they appoint wall breakers. So for every wall facer, there's a wall breaker that tries to find out their plan and sabotage it, or at least let it be known so that the Trisolarans can create a defense against it, can be prepared. This whole concept was so fascinating to me, to follow these characters and try to figure out what their plan is and to watch it all unfold, as well as the moment of I am your wall breaker. When that moment would appear, it would be like it hit me just as much as it hit the characters. Probably not just as much because they died, but it hit me too. Part one of this book was a slog. In certain parts it was very tedious to get through, partially because it was a lot of setup, but then partially also there are sections of this book that are very meandering. I do think that book one was better paced, even though it was very much a setup book. It felt more like a prologue to book two, but even with that being said, it seemed like it did exactly what it needed to do and exactly as many pages as it needed. Whereas with book two, there were plot lines that I just don't know were all satisfying, and then other plot lines that I do think ended up being satisfying, but my goodness, did we need all of that? Like, for instance, the imaginary girlfriend. Did I need a long road trip exploring all of this? Like, it was I don't know that I needed all of this. I'm just like, I don't know that I needed all this. But with all that said, there are seeds planted in part 1 that in the beginning I could tell, okay, this is important. I need to keep track of it. And I'm glad I did, because boy, oh boy, does it pay off. It's a slow build, but it's just a front heavy build where a lot of information is given to you in the beginning so that we can have tremendous payoff in the end. So speaking of the seeds, one of the things that's presented at the beginning of the book is these principles, the rules that we learn from the start. One being that survival is the most important thing to all living beings. And 2, there are a finite number of resources. And if we expand, resources don't, which we'll get to in a little bit. So let's talk about the wall breakers a little bit. So we have Frederick Tyler, who his plan is to greet the Trisolarans in his crafts, in his spacecrafts, and essentially, hey, we come in peace. Also, we brought you some water. Been a long journey. You want some water. But actually, what they have are bombs, and Tyler is gonna remote detonate from afar and kill all, friend and foe. But as soon as that plan is found out, the people turn against him and hate him, and he takes his own life. His background is that he was a former Secretary of Defense, and he believes in battle and going out with honor, and in fact he had a very tragic end for him. He wasn't able to end in a hero's way like he wanted. Then you have Bill Hines, who chose mind control as his method. He wanted to control the ideas that the people had, essentially bolster them, maybe try to force them not to have a defeatist attitude, or at least that's how it's presented. Force them not to have a defeatist attitude so that they'll fight, they'll try. But instead, when he and his family wake up from hibernation, his wife turns on him and says, I'm your wall breaker. I have been here to find out your plan from the start. That was such a jaw-dropping moment in this book. Did not see it coming, and that really emphasized the heat of the social situation. His goal was mind control in order to control the situation, but in all actuality, the very thing that is humanity's greatest defense against the Trisolarans, the ability to lie and deceive and keep things to yourself, that very thing is what ended up being his undoing, because his own wife was hiding and deceiving and keeping things for herself in order to work against him. I'm just like, what? Oh, it was such a good moment. Then you have Manuel Ray Diaz, who is making more bombs, this time to blow up Mercury. To blow up Mercury and propel it into the sun to just collapse all the planets around it, specifically all the terrestrial planets, so all the planets that could inhabit life. Basically, Trisolarans, you're a threat, we can't win, so I'm just gonna kill us and you and everything around so that we just all die. And there's no hope, and nobody can win here. And when the people find out, it's like, okay, so true, your goal was to defeat the Trisolaran threat, but you're gonna kill us all in the process. We don't like that. So they stoned him. So his plan was to make the decision for everyone to forfeit their lives, and instead everyone made the decision to forfeit his life. So there's something poetic about how each individual person meets their end and how it kind of aligns with what they're doing to try to handle the situation. I thought that was a really interesting tilt. And then just the same for our protagonist, who I haven't even talked about yet in the book. Well, I did talk about his imaginary girlfriend and their little road trip. Anyway, Lu Ji is selected for the job, doesn't want it, and tries to reject it, tries to resign, or just say, pick someone else. But because of the nature of what they're doing, everybody just kind of treats it as if, okay, this is part of your plan. We'll just play along, we'll go along with it, and give you endless resources to do what you help us, please. And he's just like, I don't even know why I was chosen. I don't want to help you. So instead, he uses all the resources given to him to be hedonistic, to indulge, to just treat himself. So it is really interesting because, as I said, the whole imaginary girlfriend thing was it was weird, but we'll come back to it. Eventually, what he decides to do is to send, okay, so forgive me if I don't fully understand what he did. You can correct me if I'm wrong. He sent a signal out into space, but from the location of a neighboring star. Is that correct? And so the signal went out from the star out into the universe, just as a signal of, hey, I'm here. And then he went into hibernation. 200 years pass. He wakes up. World's real different now, and wall breakers have been dissolved. That whole organization is over now, and Earth is like, no worries, we've got this. We can win against the Trisolarians through brute strength, but which fails. But then he learns that some cosmic, gigantic, horrifying force has destroyed the star that signal went out from, signaling to him that there's a bigger baddie out there, that it helps him to realize that the theory that he's been playing with all this time is in fact correct. So that brings us back to the two rules that were presented to us at the beginning of the book. Humanity, for any civilization, is going to try to fight for their lives, and there are finite resources. Because of these two laws, all civilizations in the universe would constantly be in conflict, because there would be civilizations on the hunt trying to kill other civilizations for their resources if the forest wasn't dark. So Lu Ji, forcing the Trilarians into a truce through a long sequence of events that are very clever and very technical, forcing them into a truce of essentially, I will broadcast your position to this greater threat that blew up that star over there. I will broadcast your position if you don't accept a truce between us, and forces this truce. And it's so brilliant to have this book that is very focused on psychological cosmic horror and the psychological goings on and reactions that humanity may have if they're faced with this threat. And the solution to it all is psychological. The solution to it all is what lives in our head. It's the secrets we can keep. It's the solutions that we can come up with in our imaginations, in our mind's eye. Because there's no way out of this. There's no way to survive this. There's no way to win. So using the dark forest, threatening to shine a light into the dark forest, is the only way. It's the only way to actually come out alive. So that ties us back to Lu Ji's imagination. It was his imagination that dreamed up this dream woman that we spent way too much time exploring. It was his imagination that did that, but it was also his ability to sit in his mind and think and portion out the information that he had that made him able to look back at Ye Winye. I'm sorry, I can't remember how to pronounce her name. The one that sent the signal up initially, the information that he gave her, I'm sorry, that she gave him, and be able to come up with this dark forest connection, proving that it was true all along. What was presented to us in the beginning is that the Trisolarians' greatest threat is the human mind. And in fact, that's exactly what caused us to survive against them when there was no hope otherwise. So we just talked about the Fumi complex a minute ago, and this book solves that complex by saying, oh, there's loads of other civilizations in the universe, but every other civilization is either intentionally keeping dark, intentionally quietly hiding, or quietly hunting. It presents the idea that there are tons of other civilizations out there. They're just terrified of presenting themselves to the next bigger, badder, stronger force, that they would have no hope against their threat. So they're all just quietly waiting for a signal. But if that signal comes, what do they do? Because in this complex, in these rules that we were presented in the beginning, the truth is that every life form, every civilization is going to try to survive. So if you see the signal, then you're faced with the possibility that if they know that you exist, if they know where you are, then they could attack you for your resources. So then you're kind of forced to attack them, potentially. So there's just a ton of civilizations out here that are all just quietly waiting in the dark forest, and if a signal presents itself, then inevitably there would be a battle. Inevitably, there could be conflict. Inevitably, they would try to survive. I don't remember the details of this scene, and I don't know why. I don't know if I just read the scene too fast because I was really enjoying it, but for whatever reason, this part of the book is kind of foggy to me. But after the Droplet confrontation, there were two ships, if I'm remembering correctly, there were two ships that were able to escape, but escaping is like some kind of treason. You don't do that. So then there were 3 pursuers, but then the explosion that ensued, or that happened through that confrontation, these 5 ships believed that all of humanity died and were destroyed. And so these 5 ships decided, okay, we're humanity and we need to find a new home, find a new way, and like we're the next human race. We have to continue the human race. But because of scarcity, because of rule number 2, there are finite resources, they're not able to get very far with the fuel that they have on the ship. And so I think they only have enough fuel for 1 ship. And so they end up just killing each other. They end up following rule 1, which is we're going to try to survive. We're going to try to keep living. And then it's basically, and forgive me if those details that I just recounted to you are not fully correct. I don't know why the details of this part of the book are so foggy in my mind. But that scene is, to me, really important because it shows on a very human, very small scale what's happening wider scale in this series. This conflict of there are finite resources and we're all going to try to survive. So if we are in this position, there will be a conflict so that someone, whoever is the strongest, can move forward with the resources. This last section of the book was horrifying. When the Droplet lands and they go out to meet it and we see what their weapons are capable of, it was like 20 pages of the most intense cosmic horror. Truly a scene that will stick with me for I don't even know how long. Hi, sorry for interrupting myself with more of myself. I'm sure you were hoping for someone else, but I realized that the Droplet scene I didn't talk about a lot in this review, which is ridiculous because it's probably the most memorable and intense scene I've read in a while. But I think I was just still kind of reeling from having read it and having just finished the book. And so I talked more about how it affected the story and less about the scene itself. So I really want to just pop in and talk about that a little bit. I think that this book did an absolutely phenomenal job of illustrating the safety that people felt at this time. So much progress has been made, so much comfort has been given to these people, and comfort then brought forth a feeling of safety and a feeling of confidence that we were bigger than we are. And humanity has a tendency to always kind of feel bigger than it is. Humans have a tendency to feel bigger and more important than we are. And it's so interesting to go from book 1 and even from the beginning of book 2, where people are scrambling, trying to find a way out of this potentially devastating situation that they're in. You know, you go from the fear and the chaos to this false sense of confidence that kind of rubs off on the reader a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. Not for a second did I think, oh, this Droplet is totally a sign of peace. This is their peace offering to us. I didn't believe that. But I still, without realizing it, had a certain level of confidence where I was like, okay, something's going to go south. Something has to go south here. But, you know, we're going to see a great battle. I didn't expect that what we were actually going to see was a great leveling. So it was how beautiful the droplet is. It was their confidence that such a beautiful thing that's so appealing wouldn't be a thing of violence. And then the fact that it arrives and it doesn't immediately start attacking. So it's just proof this is a peace offering. And it lulls you into this sense of, at least in my experience as a reader, it lulled me into a sense of safety of, okay, yes, the other shoe will drop, but then we will battle. The scene when the guy realizes that this droplet is here to send a different kind of message, my heart dropped when he said, maybe this is just a message. Sorry for the dogs. Maybe this is just a messenger, but maybe it's sending a different kind of message. And the question was, well, what's the other message? And the answer is, if I destroy you, what business is it of yours? And then that very quiet, run. I want to say, you don't understand how that affected me. You don't understand how much tension I felt raveled in my chest in that one small scene. I want to say you don't understand, but I'm sure you do, because oh my goodness. And then when the droplet just started going, just cutting through these ships, and within a matter of minutes, it seemed like there were hundreds of ships that had been wrecked, human lives destroyed before they can even think enough to create some sort of plan to help them develop a defense. Here I am thinking, okay, it's probably not a bid for peace. Prepare for battle. There's no time. There's no time to prepare for battle. This leveled us. It's not just the build up to the droplet and the sense of false security that we had been lulled into, only to then see destruction. And it's not just the scenes of destruction that came after when we saw the droplet in action. And it's not just the fact that this droplet is one. This droplet is one in an ocean of grander technology than we will ever be able to come to. But it's also the fact that there were people, many people, that saw what was happening, that understood what happened, and rationalized in their mind, okay, then this must mean that there's a third threat, because the humans didn't do this. We wouldn't turn on each other, and the Trisolarans wouldn't do this. We had this in the bag. So is there a third alien race? Is there a third civilization here to destroy us? Because they were so sure. They were so confident. They knew so well that they were going to come out on the other side of this the victors. They knew it. And so when the opposite was happening, they had to rationalize a different meaning because it was so sure to them. That's brilliant. There was even a conversation at one point before we actually faced the droplet where two people were having a conversation, and the idea of us not succeeding was brought up. And I think her response was something along the lines of, it's done. It's already decided. It's already as good as over. We're going to go accept this offering of peace. The war will be over. We'll have won, and you're going to look a fool. The droplet scene itself was horrifying. It was terrifying. It was so scary to be in a situation where you have so much confidence in your victory, and then to have a force that is far greater than you could ever imagine, yourself and your people developing to, and then couple that with the fact that this is a droplet in the ocean of their abilities, and the fact that this is just the beginning. That existential dread in that scene was brilliant, but then it's also everything around it. It's all the build up that lulled us into kind of also believing with the readers it's going to be okay, or at the very least we're going to have the ability to fight. And then the aftermath, the chaos that followed, the unwillingness to accept that we didn't have it in the bag. That whole section of the book was brilliant. It was so effective. Even now, days later, I still don't fully feel like I'm doing a good job discussing it. Anyway, back to past Murphy to finish talking about the droplet scene. But it's not just that scene and the horrors that scene displayed for us, what these weapons are capable of. It's the fact that at the end of it all, we realize that there are 9 more droplets coming. It's the fact that we just endured all this, but also there's no hope. There's absolutely no hope to survive this. The dread that fell on everyone when they realized that they had no hope of survival, the chaos that came from that was so claustrophobic. This book was so claustrophobic. The feelings of despair over our inevitable defeat and the shadow of that the battle of darkness cast over everything. It makes the reader feel like this universe and what it could potentially contain is darker, more powerful, and more terrifying than we could ever hope to face and come out alive. Anyway, this is a really dark book. It's a book full of despair. It takes you through despair. It makes you look at the universe and look at the possibility of other life forms and think, yeah, maybe I don't want to be seen. Maybe I don't want to send a signal out. Maybe I just want to be really quiet. I just want to be really quiet. I don't want to shine a light in this dark forest. Personally, I'm a really optimistic, hopeful, happy person, so I don't really live in in this kind of speculation about the universe, but it's a really interesting thought exercise for me to go there and to explore this kind of idea. But I like too that while it shines a light on the despair and while it kind of tries to make you think about it and revel in it and think about a less hopeful idea of first contact, it also still leaves you with some hope. I only wish to discuss with you one possibility. Perhaps seeds of love are present in other places in the universe. We ought to encourage them to sprout and grow. Another one. The sun will set soon. Isn't your child afraid? Of course she's not afraid. She knows that the sun will rise again tomorrow. This book was a fascinating thought experiment, and I really enjoyed being taken there and presented with these ideas and explore that side, that thought of first contact and potential how humans might respond. I very much enjoyed this book and needed to talk about it. So again, this series is smarter than I am. So if I got anything wrong, if I mixed some stuff up, if I looked a fool discussing it, please feel free to correct anything that I've said or add to any thoughts that you'd like. I know I did not cover everything. There's a lot going on in this book, so we can talk more in the comments. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday on this channel, Mondays and Fridays on the other channel, which is always linked in the description. I'll see you again soon. Bye.